Finding the right hair system stylist can honestly feel harder than finding the right hair system sometimes. I do get a lot of guys who come to me feeling overwhelmed, they feel stressed. They've approached a stylist and said, can you cut this in for me? And they're like, yeah, we can cut in hair systems, but only if you order the systems through us. So today you're going to discover how to find a trained hair system stylist that's not too far away from you, but that's also reasonably priced. And of course, ones that are able to cut in the system that you've brought with you. We're also going to look at red flags to avoid and checks that I really recommend that you do before deciding on the stylist you're going to go with. And at the end, I've got 2 pre-Black Friday surprises for you, including one of my own products, which I'm going to be making absolutely free to you guys until the 30th of November at midnight. So make sure you stick around till that. But first, we need to address the reality of this. There are way more blokes wearing hair systems in 2025 than there are trained hair system stylists. And to be fair, I can totally understand it. These kind of techniques are not taught in barbering school. They're not taught by normal hairdressers. This is still fairly niche, even though it's becoming mainstream. When you go to barber school, you're not taught how to prep the scalp. You're certainly not taught how to blend a system with natural hair. There's no chance that you're going to be taught how to work with different hair system bases. And you probably never would have heard of brands like Ghost Bond and Walker Tape. So what happens when a normal barber might be approached by someone with a hair system? Quite often they'll say, yeah, I reckon I can do it. Now that's not them being disingenuous. That's basically them just thinking this is like cutting normal hair. Of course, it's actually very different to cutting normal hair. And that's why you need someone who's actually trained in this and got some experience in this. Because if they don't have any prior training in it, they're basically winging it. And I know that I certainly wouldn't want to be winging something that I'd literally just spent $300 on. Now, the second issue here is location. Now, if you're in a vast metropolis like London or LA or San Fran or New York, chances are much higher that you'll have increased access to hair system stylists. Why? Because there's just more people in those areas that wear systems. However, not everyone lives in big cities globally. I certainly don't. I live about an hour and a half south of London. Also, maybe you're in a country that hair systems aren't that well known right now, but they're growing in popularity. One classic example I can think of is Ireland. There's actually quite a few hair system wearers there, but there's just not enough hair system stylists at the moment. Now, how can you properly search for a hair system stylist? I'm going to start with one thing which I absolutely recommend you don't do, because you'll probably end up with egg on your face and it's very unlikely to get you to where you want to be. And that's literally just going into a local barber, saying I've got a hair system. They probably haven't even heard of what a hair system is, and saying, look, I've glued it on, can you just cut it and just blend it with my natural hair? Guys, they don't know how to do that. They're not trained to do that. It's a very different way of cutting hair. So please do not do that. It will just end in disappointment. Now, what I would like you to do, I'd like you to go onto the internet and go onto a reputable search engine. Google can be a great place to start with this. However, I don't want you to use the words hair system stylist, especially if you're in the UK. It seems to be that non-surgical hair replacement stylist or men's hair replacement barber, I think it's probably similar in the US. If you type in those terms, you'll actually get much more accurate and wide-ranging results. If you're based in Europe as well, the word or the phrase hair toppers is a bit more common. In the US, even hairpiece barber. And then after that, within the search bar, I want you to put either the state that you're in or the county that you're in, or if you're feeling really confident, maybe just put in your postal or zip code. But I'd initially recommend going with something a bit broader. I mean, in the UK, most counties, you can drive from one side to the other in about an hour. That's not too bad. So if there's a hair system stylist within your county, that's pretty doable. I know in America there are some extreme examples like Texas, which is actually bigger than the landmass of the UK. You know, let's say we're looking for South Carolina or New Jersey or Michigan even. But I would imagine if you do this and you go at state level or county level, you'll get way more results. I don't want you just finding one place, because if you're just looking at one place, there's no way that you can do a price comparison, and there's no way if you can assess if they're exactly the kind of stylist which fits your criteria. Now, the second thing I want you to do is check if they've got an Instagram or a Facebook page. This is really important, because this is where a lot of stylists or barbers actually show their results. And also with social media, it's a lot easier to update your profile than it is to update your website. So you're likely to get a lot more recent posts in terms of before and afters or testimonials on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Check them out. If you can't find them, go onto their website. They'll usually have an icon, like an Instagram icon, TikTok icon, Facebook icon. Go on there and see what photos, actually, do you know what? I wouldn't even encourage photos because photos can be doctored. You want to be seeing videos, you want to be seeing before and afters, and you want to be seeing a good few of them. You might also find, and this is quite rare, but I have come across it, is that some stylists just don't have websites. They've just got an Instagram handle or they've just got a TikTok handle. So what you might also want to do is go onto Instagram, go onto TikTok, type in hair replacement system or non-surgical hair replacement, and then either the state, the county, or your nearest city, for instance, and see what comes up. Now, if you found some channels that are fairly near you within a couple of hours, you want to see if they've got videos, and you want to see in the videos, what do the blends look like? What does the density look like? What does the hairline look like? And I'm very aware that as I'm speaking and talking about hairlines, my hairline looks terrible today. I made the rookie error putting glue on my scalp near the hairline and just estimating. Please don't do this, guys. Please don't do what I did yesterday. It's a terrible idea and I'm paying the price for it, and I've been pulling out bits of glue here and there. It's a nightmare. It doesn't make the hairline look as good. Now, if you can't find any videos on their Instagram channels or their TikTok channels, that's not necessarily a red flag. It might be someone who's just not as tech savvy as someone in their 20s or their 30s, and they might just feel more comfortable putting photos up because they don't even know how to make Instagram reels. That's fine. What I'd do in that situation, just pop them a DM. And trust me, when you DM a reputable hair system stylist who knows what they're doing, they won't be offended if you just ask them for some footage. At the end of the day, you're parting with a lot of money here, and you've also spent 300 plus bucks on a system, and you don't want the stylist to get it wrong. One other thing which isn't essential but can help, if they've got a website, quite often now, if you Google their website, it will come up with reviews, how you can book, if they've got a telephone line. Just have a look at the reviews if there are any available. Once you've identified a couple of stylists who are fairly near you, you're willing to travel there, I want you to have a few questions in mind that you ask them before you get your first system cut in. Most people skip this part and regret it later, so please don't do that. Firstly, you want to be asking, how long have you been working with hair systems? You want someone who's been working at least 6 to 12 months with systems. It takes experience to get this right. You might also want to ask them, do you work with all base types? Now, if they only work with poly and you're wearing lace, yeah, that could be a problem. However, it's not the end of the world. Most people wear polys now, and that's because polys are just getting really, really good. So if a stylist is honest enough to say, look, I don't really work with lace, it's not really the end of the world. Would you be willing to compromise maybe and just go with poly bases? I certainly wouldn't have a problem with it. Question number 3 that I'd ask is, how do they work with the blend? So blending the actual side of the system with your natural hair. So how do they deal with weight removal? Do they use scissors? Do they use like a blade? Do they use hair thinning scissors? If they're vague and they just say, yeah, we blend it just like normal hair. No. You need evidence. Very different ways of cutting hair we're talking about here. Now we're going to talk about some red flags, which if you hear any of these things, run. You could only find 1 or 2 before and after transformations on their website or on their social media accounts. Another massive red flag is if they just sound vague in their answers. If you're vague and you can't be descriptive, you're hiding something. So use your intuition. A few more red flags, which I'm going to list here. They won't answer basic questions. They're ambiguous about pricing. They try and rush to get you into the chair. They only work with one brand and they can't explain why. The hairlines that you have seen on their website look too dense. Maybe they look too straight, and they can't prove that they've had any sort of hair system training. Those are big red flags, guys, and you certainly deserve better than a guess and hope job. Now, what if you've done all of this and you still can't find a stylist? Well, there is still an option, and for a limited time, it's absolutely free to use. It's my Global Hair System Stylist directory. I've spent years building a database of trained stylists who know what they're doing with years of experience. These are people who understand systems. These are people who work with systems on a daily basis. And I'm making that absolutely free to you guys, everyone watching this video, until midnight on the 30th of November. The link to that is in the description beneath this video. So make sure that you download that for free before the deadline. Let's just call it a little pre-Black Friday gift from me. Now, it's important to note that this directory is normally only available inside my hair system bootcamp, but I want to give you guys something genuinely helpful going into December and going into the new year. And I know that some people struggle finding the right stylist for them. So just hit that link in the description box and start reaching out to stylists near you. It will save you hours of searching, hours of frustration, and it'll probably save you a lot of money along the way. And one last thing before you go. On the topic of Black Friday, LaVivid are offering 50% off selected items in their range, and they're also offering 25% off site-wide all of their stock systems until the 28th of November. So now is literally the best time to stock up. So I want you to make sure that you grab your freebies, grab your discounts, and I'll see you in the next video.